Okay, so you want to know more about industrial engineering technicians, huh? Well, we've got a whole stack of info here, stuff that goes way beyond, the usual job boards and websites.
Yeah, what really struck me is how it's not just about like making the assembly line go faster. It's way more about um, making the whole system better, safer. They're all about efficiency, but in a really smart way.
Right. Like, they're almost like detectives for manufacturing or something. One source even mentioned how they're often, like, deep in data, analyzing how everything's working.
Oh yeah, totally. But they're not just stuck in a cubicle. They actually spend a good chunk of time on the factory floor itself, seeing how it all works in real time. Then they take that real world experience back and use it to figure out how to make things even better.
So it's like a mix of hands-on and, I guess, the theoretical stuff, right? Okay, now let's talk job outlook. From what
Okay.
we've got here, it seems like this career path is in high demand, like really high demand.
Yeah, and you know what usually comes with high demand?
Good salary potential.
Exactly. Nobody's complaining about that, right? But what I also found interesting was how much they emphasize working with like the latest tech, AI, automation, it's changing the game in manufacturing.
And these technicians are the ones like right there on the front lines, which probably means they need to be ready to learn constantly, right? Because tech just keeps changing.
Absolutely. And since you're dealing with, complex systems often under pressure,
Mm.
it can definitely be stressful. Long hours sometimes too. It
Oh,
takes a
yeah.
certain kind of person, someone who really thrives on problem solving.
Makes sense. You're basically being brought in to like find and fix inefficiencies, right? So let's talk about those skills. Our sources had a lot to say about what makes an industrial engineering technician tick. On the technical side, CAD software was a big one.
Yeah, CAD's essential. And understanding the manufacturing processes inside and out. Oh, and of course, data analysis, that's a big one.
Right, gotta love spreadsheets. But it's not just about the hard skills, is it? I mean, you're working with teams, engineers, all sorts of people, so you need those people skills too, right?
Big time. Communication is key. Think about it. You're the one explaining those data insights, presenting your findings. Got to make sure everyone's on the same page.
And problem solving, I'd imagine that's a must-have too.
Oh, absolutely. Let's say a factory's behind on their quotas, right? An industrial engineering technician, they might use that data analysis to figure out, like, is it the machinery acting up? Or maybe a bottleneck somewhere in the process. Could even be, like, how the workspace is organized. You'd be surprised.
Wow, so they can have a huge impact.
Oh, for sure. And that's why, going back to what we said earlier, that continuous learning is so important. Manufacturing is always changing, new tech, new methods.
So those mental muscles, you got to keep them flexed. Now, about those technical skills, let's zoom in a bit more. What exactly is CAD software?
Good question. CAD, it stands for Computer Aided Design. It's kind of like, think of it as digital drafting.
Like architects use for buildings, but for like products and machines.
Exactly. Designing products, machine parts. They even use it to, like, simulate how those parts will function in the whole manufacturing process before anything's even built.
So they can spot problems before they happen. Pretty cool. And what about the whole understanding manufacturing processes thing? What does that look like?
Well, let me put it this way. It could be anything from knowing how, say, a circuit board is put together
Mm.
to understanding how materials move through a whole factory, even like the specifics of a certain welding technique.
Hmm.
It's really knowing how things get made from A to Z.
Sounds like you need to be super detail oriented, but also able to like zoom out and see the whole picture,
You
right?
got it. It's a really fascinating mix of technical know-how and like big picture thinking.
Okay, so we've got a good handle on the skills.
Mhm.
Now let's talk about what climbing the career ladder looks like. So let's say like you've got the skills, you're ready to jump in. What's the actual path look like, starting out and moving up?
Well, all the sources we looked at, they kind of pointed to the same basic path. You usually start out as an entry-level industrial engineering technician.
Makes sense. Got to start somewhere. So what are you actually doing at that level?
A lot of it's about learning the ropes. You might be helping out the more senior technicians with like production studies, collecting data, that sort of thing.
Hmm.
Maybe even getting some hands-on experience with documenting processes, how things actually work.
Sounds like a good way to put those technical skills to use. See how it all works in the real world?
Exactly. Then, once you've got some experience under your belt, you've proven yourself, you'd probably move up to junior technician.
Okay, so what changes then? More responsibility.
Definitely. As a junior technician, you might be running those production studies yourself, taking the lead on projects, maybe even presenting what you find to a team.
Okay, so that's where those people skills really come in handy. Got to be able to explain things clearly, right?
100%. And then, assuming you keep learning and growing, next step up would usually be senior industrial engineering technician.
So at the senior level, what's a typical day look like?
Well, you're kind of top dog now, at least for the technicians. You might be leading those big production studies, mentoring the junior team members, working directly with the engineers to actually implement those process improvements. You've got a real voice at the table.
Sounds like a lot of impact. Now, what about people who, are ambitious, want to keep climbing that ladder? Is there anything beyond senior technician?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Our sources mention that a lot of folks, they go on to become industrial engineers, even project managers sometimes, taking on bigger roles, more leadership.
So the growth potential is definitely there.
Oh, yeah, tons of opportunity.
Mm.
And one thing that can really give you an edge, especially if you want to move up fast, is certifications.
You mentioned certifications earlier, and I'm actually kind of curious about that. Are there any specific ones that stand out? Like, if you had that on your resume, people would be impressed.
One that kept popping up was Lean Six Sigma Green Belt certification. It's recognized pretty much everywhere, and it's all about, making processes super efficient, cutting out waste.
Lean Six Sigma. Yeah, I've heard that before, but could you, refresh my memory a bit? What's it all about?
Basically, it's a whole system for, well, like I said, making things run smoother. They call it lean because it focuses on getting rid of anything that's not absolutely necessary, no wasted effort. And the Six Sigma part, that's all about making things as consistent as possible, reducing errors.
So less waste, fewer mistakes, basically makes the whole operation better, right?
You got it. And in manufacturing, that's huge. Even small inefficiencies can cost a company a ton of money.
Makes sense. So having that Lean Six Sigma green belt on your resume, that's basically like saying, hey, I know how to save you money, right?
Exactly. And it shows you're serious about your career, always learning new things, which in a field that changes as fast as manufacturing, that's super important.
Like you said earlier, got to keep those mental muscles flexed.
For sure. Plus, the problem-solving skills you learn with Lean Six Sigma, those are valuable in any job, not just manufacturing.
It's a win-win. Now, speaking of things that can boost your career, our research also highlighted networking, like actually getting out there and meeting people. What's the deal with that?
Well, they say it's not always what you know, it's who you know. That's true in a lot of fields, and industrial engineering is no exception.
So, how do you even start networking in this field? Are there any, specific places you should go, things you should do?
Joining a professional organization is always a good move. In this case, the big one is the Institute of Industrial and Systems Engineers. They call it ICE for short.
Okay, so I join this ICE, then what? What's the benefit?
Well, for one thing, you meet tons of people in the field. You've got seasoned professionals, people just starting out, all kinds of perspectives.
Sounds like a good way to learn from each other, maybe even find a mentor, right?
Exactly. And don't forget about industry events and conferences. Those are gold mines for meeting people. Plus, you get to learn about the latest trends, new tech, all that good stuff.
So it's a mix of formal networking through groups like ICE and then just, getting out there and talking to people at events.
Exactly. You got to be proactive, put yourself out there, meet people who share your, passion for making things work better.
It really does seem like a field where collaboration is key. Everyone's sharing ideas and learning from each other.
For sure. Two heads are better than one, especially when you're trying to solve those really complex manufacturing puzzles.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, from the actual tasks of the job to the career path, even those extra things like certifications and networking. But before we wrap up, let's bring it back to the listener, the person thinking about this as a career. So we've talked about all the technical stuff, the career, even how to level up with certifications and all that. But I'm curious, what kind of person would really love this job? What's their ideal day look like?
Oh, I like that. Well, picture this. You get to work, grab your coffee, and start digging into some data from the factory floor. Maybe production dipped a bit yesterday, and your job is to figure out why.
Okay, so it's kind of like detective work, right? But with numbers.
Exactly. You're comparing variables, looking for patterns, trying to see if it's a machine issue or maybe a bottleneck somewhere in the process. And then once you've got a good handle on the data, you might head down to the factory floor yourself.
Get out of the office a bit.
Yep. See the process firsthand. Maybe chat with the folks who work on the line every day. Sometimes they'll notice things that don't even show up in the data.
That's so cool, though. It's not just staring at spreadsheets all day. You're actually out there seeing how it all works.
Right. And then, armed with all that data and real-world observations, you might fire up that CAD software we were talking about. Start sketching out potential solutions. Could be as simple as tweaking the layout of a workstation, or maybe designing a whole new tool that makes a tricky assembly step way easier.
So you're really making things better, like having a tangible impact.
Absolutely. And you're not just off in a silo doing it all on your own. You're collaborating with engineers, bouncing ideas off each other, working as a team to find the best solution.
It's that mix of like solo problem solving and teamwork that I think would really appeal to some people. So to bring this all back around, if you're someone who loves figuring out how things work, enjoys a good challenge, and gets a kick out of making things run smoother, well, this could be a really good fit.
100%. And here's something else to think about. As technology keeps evolving, these industrial engineering technicians, they're going to be more important than ever.
Yeah.
They'll be the ones integrating AI, robots, 3D printing, all that cool stuff into the way things are made.
Oh, wow. So it's not just about making what we have now better. It's about shaping how things are going to be made in the future.
Exactly. It's a career that's constantly evolving, always something new to learn.
And for someone who loves to learn and problem solve, it doesn't get much better than that.
Couldn't agree more.
Well, on that note, I think we've done a pretty deep dive here today. Big thanks to you. This has been super insightful.
My pleasure. Always happy to geek out about manufacturing.
And to everyone listening, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.